Some of the best people I've met in my life are Muslim. Some of the people I love are Muslim. That doesn't change the problems that come from the Islamic culture and community. We acted as a safe haven for terrorist groups. The Muslim Brotherhood, Hizb ut-Tahrir, all the groups that are prescribed and banned by the UAE and Islamic countries and given a place in Britain. Drug dealing, the heroin dealing, the pimping of young girls, the grooming, they were confined to towns like Luton. They're not now. They're widespread across the country and people can see them in their own towns. I'd grown up in that environment. So 2004, I organised 200 lads and I'd done it barefaced. We've got to deal with these lot. They're outside our bakery in our town centre recruiting for terrorists. That was the start of the English Defence League.
And you ended up leaving the EDL, why?
By 2014, I was put in jail and there was these groups, Northwest Infidels, absolute scumbags, yeah, proper Nazis, proper racist little mugs, and I'd had clashes with them for years. By the time I come out of jail, I watched the demonstrations I've missed and I see them all there. I realised that what I need the public to see is what I've seen. Rape after rape, extremism after extremism, terrorism after terrorism.
That's when you became a journalist.
And I become the most watched journalist in Europe. I was covering stories that no one else would. I produced Panodrama. It had 2 million views in 24 hours. I was deleted from everything. What I wasn't ready for was the state persecution. They've wanted to set an example, to send a message to everyone else, but it's backfired because I'm a stubborn little shit. And my last prison sentence was for making a film. I've got all the proof that the whole court system is corrupt, the whole judiciary is corrupt.
You showed it in Trafalgar Square and they put you in jail.
I said to the kids, I want to play the film, Dad's going to go to jail. I want their permission to do it. I explained that I feel I have to do it. I've gone through this life for 15 years, everything we've all seen. Remember, my kids have lived in 8 houses. Houses being smashed up, cars being smashed up. My kids were there when people come up saying we'll stick holes in you. My son after that wouldn't walk down the street with me, he had panic attacks all the time. And he was about 9. So yeah. So then I played the film. My son come on a visit and said, Dad, it's on 140 million views, Dad. We've done it. I was like, yes. And when Elon Musk shared it, this first week of January, I've rung home, son's like, Dad! And I'm ringing, I'm like, what? He goes, Elon Musk just pinned Free Tommy Robinson. He shared the film. In that first week in January, I sort of relaxed because I knew it was worth it.
You have an event coming up September 13th in London.
This is going to be the biggest thing London's seen.
And you said bring your family, bring your kids.
I get shown love everywhere I go now, so change is coming. To people who are upset, to people who feel alienated, alone, you're not alone, man. You're the majority. Change is coming. They can't stop it.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs, sharing our vulnerability, overcoming our fears, transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is...
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing in crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Tommy Robinson, the citizen journalist, political activist, and vocal critic of Islamic extremism in the UK. Over the past decade, you become one of the most recognizable and polarizing figures in Britain, known for your uncompromising views on immigration, radicalization, and the institutional cover-ups involving grooming gangs across the country. You're the creator of The Rape of Britain, an investigative documentary series that accuses local councils, police forces, and media outlets of ignoring or enabling the systematic exploitation of vulnerable children. The project has reignited national debate around free speech, press freedom, and the accountability of public institutions. Your activism has led to arrests, legal challenges, and bans from major platforms, something we've also experienced here at London Real. While some see you as a whistleblower confronting uncomfortable truths, others accuse you of fueling division and spreading extremist rhetoric. You said in the past that Islam itself is the root cause of much of this extremism, but when I spend time in places like the UAE and cities like Dubai, I see something very different. An Islamic-based culture and government that promotes safety, traditional values, and an anti-woke ethos without the problems you highlight in Britain. Today, I want to discover who is Tommy Robinson and ask what your story exposes about the growing crisis in Britain, Europe, and now the United States, the spread of extremism, the collapse of institutional trust, and the systematic erosion of free speech in so-called democratic societies. Tommy, welcome to London Real.
It's good to be here. We're going to have a lot to talk about.
I feel like this was always going to happen, and I'm really glad it's happening. So thank you. I think we should start from the beginning. I want to hear about what it was like to grow up in Luton in the 1980s and 1990s and 2000s, because I think that without understanding that, no one understands who you are or your political views or even your activism today.
And I also think that where the public have shifted, the problems that I spoke about growing up as a child, and when I started talking about the problems in Luton, they were confined to towns like Luton.
Right.
They're not now. They're widespread across the country,
right,
and people can see them in their own towns. So then they're realising, damn, many of the things we spoke about, which we were called liars for, or fear-mongering, or exaggerations, like the rape gang scandal, we were talking about that for 20 years, and no one wanted to believe us. Now they realise we were telling the truth. But just so that any of your viewers understand, I was born in 1982. Luton, we don't pronounce our T's in Luton, but Luton is 30 miles north of London. Okay, it's a working class town. It's labelled as probably one of the roughest towns in Britain. It's a lot of poverty. But when I was born in 1982, we had one mosque. We now have 45. Yeah. So, and Luton, sound posh saying that, Luton is a blueprint for every town and city. Okay, the demographical change to Luton, the problems that come in Luton, they're going to go on in every town and city. And that's what we've been trying to warn about. It's Luton today, is your town tomorrow. You can ignore it if you want, but it's coming. You can move out of Luton if you want, just come in there in 10 years. Yeah? The demographical change in this nation, which has been accelerated through mass immigration, open border immigration, weak cowards as government, no one willing to address this issue. Even now, Nigel Farage won't address it. He doesn't care about the demographical change to the country. So he doesn't care if white English become a minority. Well, white English are a minority in Luton. And as I said, it's a blueprint. But so you understand growing up, and I want to make something clear. You spoke about the United Arab Emirates. Just so people understand, some of the best people I've met in my life are Muslim. Some of the people I love are Muslim. Yeah? Luton, growing up at school, some of those wonderful and best people I've ever met, yeah, are Muslim. That doesn't change some of the problems that come from the Islamic culture and community. Doesn't change it. So some people try and argue, oh yeah, but my kebab shop worker or the tax driver I had was a lovely bloke. That doesn't prove Islam's going to be good, okay? So the changes you see, when I grew up, when I went to my junior school, it was different. But when I went to high school, in our area of Luton, we had buses full of Pakistani Muslims being brought up to the high school, yeah? Now, Luton, my mum was an Irish immigrant to Luton. When my mum come, it was no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. That was what was on that was the shops, yeah? And the Irish community were in one area of the town. And then there was the Muslim community. But the Muslim community, compared to all the other communities, there was no integration or assimilation. And I only realised this when I went to high school. Because when I went to high school, we had St. Lucians, Jamaicans, Bulgarians, Italians, Indians, so Sikhs, Chinese, we had everyone, every son of every immigration. But straight away at school, the Muslims were just all together. For example, you had the Muslim playground and the non-Muslim playground. Luton's division was never through race, because white and black was like this. Yeah? Luton has as a youngster, I was elevated towards the football hooligan scene in Luton. As a young working class kid, I went to football and lads would meet up on a Saturday and have a boisterous day out of the football. But Luton's football hooligan element was very diverse. It's all whites and blacks. Always has been. So the older generation from me that I aspired and looked up to as a kid, it was white and black men standing together fighting on the terraces. Yeah, that's why. So Luton's never had, and I never experienced it, any racism. I never saw racism. It was, if there was ever trouble, the whites and blacks would be together and they'd be fighting the Pakistanis. And that happened at school time and time again. Yeah, and I explain it to people that if you just walk into the school dinner hall, go into any school in Luton, yeah, I guarantee you, when you walk in, you'll have everyone sitting together, and in the corner there'll be 10 tables of Pakistani Muslims. They won't even sit with you. We didn't create that as children. That wasn't us. And I never really understood it, if I'm honest, growing up. I didn't get it. I just knew the Pakistanis were different. There was something very different about the Pakistanis. If you have a fight with one, you might as well have declared war with the whole community. Yeah. If you have a fight with a 13-year-old Pakistani boy at school, when you get outside, there's 20 men waiting. And any lads listening to this around the country who grew up where Muslim communities are know the score. Yeah, they just stick together. They come from everywhere.
Makes them stronger.
Yeah, and it's a strong culture. It's a strong ideology. It's a strong brotherhood. In fact, it's filling the void of something that we've lost, which is why many people are converting to Islam. We can get onto that. There's some benefits of Islam. There's some things you should respect about Islam, about the way as a community it brings itself together. But there's a lot of problems that come from it that we must talk about. So,
is there any parallel with like Italian immigrants in America and the mafia, that they would move together to have some strength for an immigrant group? And they would do the same here?
Maybe when the Muslim community first come to the UK, this is what I understand, yeah? In Luton and towns like Luton, maybe they were targeted, maybe there was racism, maybe there were victims, and maybe they clubbed together and stuck together. Maybe, yeah? But when you understand, 2010-11, I was on solitary confinement. I spent 22 weeks on solitary confinement. And a Muslim outreach group sent me a Quran to try and convert me to Islam when I was in prison. And I opened up the Quran. I thought, right, I've never looked at the book. Let's try and understand this book. And I challenge anyone watching this to do it. Take the Quran and make a reference every time it says, do not be friends with Christians or Jews. Just reference the verse and the chapter. And I started going through and I'm making notes, and I had pages. And everything I'd seen my whole life just fell into place. I just looked and thought, oh my God. So all of these children are being brought up in their households from this big, reading this book, which tells them not to be friends with Christians or Jews, which teaches supremacy over Christians and Jews, which teaches total non-assimilation and integration. It's from this book. That's when I realised this is the problem. This is what's created, even if it wasn't violent, this is what's created the total Islamic ghettos. And I challenge journalists, again, I'll challenge anyone to do this. Yeah? Whenever a journalist used to come to Luton and interview me, when I set up the English Defence League, I'll get on to explaining why we've done that. But I would say to a journalist, okay, you go and find Muslims with non-Muslims. Go on, we're in the town centre. Go and find me any Muslim with a non-Muslim. You're not gonna. You might find them working together. But as soon as work finishes, just like when school finishes, yeah, it's the Muslims and it's the non-Muslims. You'll find whites with blacks. Every group of white boys will be with blacks. Every group of black boys will be with whites. Well integrated, well assimilated. Yeah, you won't find it. You just won't find it unless they're selling them heroin or selling them drugs or raping them. You will not find it. And that's just. And again, that's the truth.
It's also given them the power.
It gives them
that maybe other groups are jealous of.
I'd say at times we've been jealous as a community looking at the Islamic community, at the togetherness, the brotherhood, the staunch identity, and it's filled a void of what the weakness in what the West has become. Right. When our families have come under attack, which is all orchestrated and organised, yeah, weaken the family, attack the men, feminise the men. Yeah. We're witnessing all this happening to the Western Christian nations. Yeah. And as that's happening to us, you have Islam, which says, we're not weakening. We're not flying rainbow flags. You have to hold your hands up. I remember when I watched the World Cup in Qatar, I was like, it's their country, governed by their laws, yeah? And I was actually thinking, I was about time someone told them to take those rainbow flags down. Yeah? Stop pushing that shit. But at the same time, there's lots of flaws with it. But I think it's filled a void.
So you respect it to a certain extent, but it's also terrorizing your country.
It's terrorizing our country, it's changing our country, it's dominating our country. And I respect it in a certain sense, and I can give so many examples, Brian, of, say for example, we set up the English Defence League, yeah? I'll get on to, I'll rewind and explain why, because there's lots of justification why. But I set up in the English Defence League. We're a street protest movement. We come out of Luton, spread across the whole country.
When did it start, roughly?
It started 2009.
2009.
Now, so my first, just so you understand my upbringing, I went to school. I was from a working class background. I done well at school. I didn't try. I got 11 grades, I got 11 A to C's, I got an A in maths. I didn't look at one book, yeah? I could sit in class and mess around the whole class and breeze it, okay? I was quite natural, it was easy for me. Yeah. I didn't study a bit, I passed all the GCSEs. When I left school, I applied to be an aeronautical engineer.
At Luton, right?
At Luton, and I qualified, I went to work and I qualified, and I knew very quickly I shouldn't be there, if I'm honest. Yeah? When I started talking to the other people that worked there, who I didn't have much in common with, I asked them where they lived, and they all lived in villages, and they're all from wealthy areas, all the people who worked as aircraft engineers. And I just felt out of place. And I think I felt out of place because of my background and where I'd come from. And I'd go out and I'd come in with a black eye after a night out, and everyone would look at me like an alien. I think, what's going on? Like, and the way you brought up in Luton, what you think's normal in Luton, I only realised isn't normal as I grew up.
Like what?
Like fighting and violence and way to deal with things. Our school would fight the other schools every Friday. Lads would be going out 30-handed looking for other lads. And that was just part of growing up. And if someone says something to you negative, you'd beat them up. But that's not normal. But it took me a long time to realise that's not normal. It took me till I started looking at other towns. And when I experienced going to other communities or other areas near Luton, I went to Hitchin. I thought, wow, this place is lovely. There's no attitude. When you walk through Luton, people are looking at you. There's aggression. And that's not. I'm not talking about the Muslim community here. I'm just talking. There's an aggression. Right. So I grew up in that town of Luton, but I always kept. My mum was Irish. She was one of 8 children. They come from a real poor background, but I had a loving family, a really loving family. I had a great upbringing, and I guess I was always in the group of lads that were causing lots of trouble, but I never got involved in the criminality. And I managed to keep myself in I done my career, I done my job, I qualified as an aircraft engineer. I went on after that, I set up two businesses between me and my ex-wife. We purchased 7 properties, we were doing well. But 2004, when I was doing my apprenticeship, the Beslam school massacre happened. I don't know if you remember it.
Oh yeah, in Chechnya.
In Chechnya.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
brutal.
Everyone has the light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Something changes your mind and wakes you up. And do you know what? Sometimes would it have been better not to wake up? You know, all these people who have opened their eyes, when maybe it was during COVID, vaccines. Once your eyes are open, you can't close them. You know it changes you. It takes over your life. I guess you've experienced it. Yeah,
a little bit.
And then it takes over everything. So the English Defence League took over my life.
What did you see from that Beslan massacre?
So I saw the Beslan massacre. And I saw...
This is when a bunch of terrorists took over a school.
Terrorists took over a school.
And the Russians went in and they blew it up or something.
Yeah, they took over the school, but the parents come outside the school. So imagine this. Your children are inside the school. Lots of terrorists have got the children. The parents are outside school gates. The military are not letting them go in because they've got the situation they're trying to deal with. And then you hear them start butchering the kids and killing the kids. And I can see the parents now. I can see it now. Dropping on their knees. And I remember watching it just going, what the fuck is this? Like, this isn't one madman. This is an entire group. That's what woke me up to it. It wasn't one absolute lunatic going on a killing spree. This was a whole group of men that have come together. They've prepared this and they've decided to go attack children and butcher them. And so for me, it was looking at it going, well, what's behind this? Yeah. And then 2 weeks after, so this was my wake-up call. I was doing my apprenticeship. And a couple of weeks after this, there's an interview in a chicken shop in Luton. Yeah. And in this chicken shop in Luton, there's Pakistani Muslims being interviewed, and one of their names is Saif al-Islam, Sword of Islam. That's what it translates as. And at the time, he was number 2 in an organisation called Al-Mujahideen. Omar Bakri, Abu Hamza with a hook, all the country's worst terrorists, this was the group. Now at the time, this group weren't prescribed as a terrorist organisation. There was no one prescribed as a terrorist organisation because we hadn't had a terrorist attack in the UK. Right. In fact, what the UK acted as, so people understand the history of it, we acted as a safe haven for terrorist groups. We gave safe haven because we wanted a Mujahideen, Islamic jihadists, to be fighting against Russia in Afghanistan. So we let them base themselves. The Muslim Brotherhood, Hizb ut-Tahrir, all the groups that are prescribed and banned by the UAE and Islamic countries are allowed to grow and were supported and given a place in Britain. Yeah. So as these groups are growing, when none of us even know what they are or who they are. We don't know what Islam is or jihad is at the time, yeah? So I look at this interview in a chicken shop, and I'm young, and I'm pretty full of testosterone anyway, as a young man. I didn't mind a punch-up as a youngster. I'd grown up in that environment, and I saw these Muslims being interviewed, Pakistani boys, and they're talking about Chechen, the attack, and he said, if this happened in a school in the UK, it'd be justified. And I'm looking, thinking, who the fuck is he? I'd already started looking at that group, the group that done it. So enough, and then I zoomed in on him and thought, Saiful Islam, let me see who he is. It's funny because I end up having a clash with him years later on the documentary. He punched me through the car window. It was a viral video, but I can get onto that. So I look at him and I go, right, who's he? So I look at their head office, and it's on Biscuit Road in Luton, and I start looking at the group. And
how do you get out of a rat race? How do you create wealth not only for yourself, but also for the generations to come after?
I am absolutely amazed with the quality of companies that we're getting exposure to.
We go on to Zoom calls with the innovators and the folks who are building new applications in metaverse, blockchain, artificial intelligence, decentralized finance.
What's going on, everybody? Thumbs up if you can see me.
We are focusing on early stage investment.
And the quality of people that we're getting exposure to, whether it be Dan Tapiero with 1RT, Jason Ma from Open, Yatsu from Animoca.
It's been a phenomenal experience thus far. It has far exceeded my expectations.
We are focusing on cutting edge technologies.
I view it now as the best investment I've ever made. The upside, I view, is unlimited.
And as a retail investor, I would never get this exposure anywhere else outside of Investment Club.
See you in the Investment Club.
See that every Saturday they're outside Don Miller's Bakery in Luton Town Centre. So the next Saturday I went down to watch, and there's a whole massive group of them, and they're openly at this time. This is before they were stopped. Do you remember Abu Hamza with a hook in Finsbury Park Mosque? People might remember this. He used to stand and preach to hundreds of balaclava wearing Muslims, and there'd be promoting jihad and planning jihad, and no one stopping them. Free speech it was, yeah? Free speech. If you talk against it, you get nicked, but it was free speech. So that's all going on. And then I looked, so as I'm standing there watching, they were recruiting people to go fight against British Armed Forces, yeah? Wow. Sending them out and helping them, and had all these pace tables set up. And there was a copper there, and I said to her, what the fuck is this? And how are these doing this? She said, it's free speech. I said, all right, see if it's free speech in 2 weeks then. She said, what? I said, we'll see if this is free speech in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks later, I organised about 200 lads, this is our football lads, and got the lads together and said, we've got to deal with these lot. Yeah, as in, they're outside our bakery in our town centre recruiting for terrorists. What's going on? Like, and I guess I've always been a bit tribal anyway. Tribal about school, tribal about Luton, tribal about my country. And I just felt, Luton's our town. And then every time anyone hears Luton mentioned in the media, it's about jihad, terrorism, and it's always beaten down. But inside Luton is a population of working class men and women who love the town, who love the country, who love our armed forces. So this is 2004. So I called it Ban the Luton Taliban. And I made leaflets. And I thought, do you know what? Everything I've seen growing up in this town, my cousin was a victim of what we now call grooming gangs. She was 14, she was raped, gang raped. She woke up naked, getting raped by loads of men with beards, and she run through the streets, and the prostitutes on the streets stopped her. They rang her dad. The family ring the police, nothing, yeah? In the end, she'd be climbing back out the window to get back to the Muslim gangs for their heroin fixes, and the police would just say she's a drug addict. The reality, she was a child who they'd enticed, groomed, and then raped, yeah? And nothing was done. And do you know how many girls I went to school with and watched these things happen to? Yeah? So we're watching all this growing up. We're seeing all the hostility. You had the 7-7 launch pad there in Luton, fertiliser bomb pot Luton. Q was the main Al-Qaeda bomb maker, drove a taxi in Luton. All Luton, Luton, Luton. Stockholm bomber, Luton. CIA named Luton as the epicentre for terrorist activity. Why? Because this group, that's where it was, this group. 60% of Muslims in prison now for terrorism are ex-members of this group. This group was out of control and no one even knew about them. So 2004, I organised 200 lads and I done it barefaced. I went down and said, fuck them. And in the leaflet, and this leaflet made on the front page of my newspaper. So when I'd done a presentation in 2015 at Oxford University, I wanted people to understand the history. The English Defence League was born in 2009. It didn't come from nowhere. Yeah? There's been a lot going on in this town. Right. And a lot has been allowed to happen. So I had the opportunity in 2015 to explain it to an audience at Oxford University and say, let me tell you who I am, and let me tell you where I come from, and see if you still have the same opinion. Because you've got an opinion on me based on media, but you don't know you haven't seen what I've walked. You haven't lived my life. Yeah. So I'll talk about certain things, like there was a gentleman called Mark Sharp in Luton. His son was my age. He drove past and he had a road rage with some Muslim lads. He called them wankers, and then they followed him. And as they followed him, they rang for reinforcements, and they get him as he pulls up with his son to get a takeaway. They get out and they're beating him with baseball bats, and he doesn't go down. He was a tough bloke. He doesn't go down, and they jump up and snap a knife off in his head, and they kill him. He survived for about a week in hospital, but then he died. And I remember this. This is just one incident. I remember loads of incidents like this. When they went to court, read this case, it will shock you. Yeah. When they went to court, the judge said to the jury, you can decide if what Mark done by calling them wankers was enough to provoke a young Asian male. They got 2 years and 4 years. They butchered him, killed him in front of his son. His family left Luton at the time. They all moved out. Yeah. So I'd watch incident after incident, rape after rape, extremism after extremism, terrorism after terrorism. 2004, in the leaflet, which I dug up for Oxford University, and the reason I dug it up was for, say where we are now. I want people to know I've never changed. What I said in 2004 is what I'm saying now. Now in the leaflet in 2004, I said whites and blacks, because it's not a white issue in Luton. Remember, I'm not from a white town. Yeah, the people I love are not all white. So when people tried to wear around white supremacists, like, what are you talking about? Yeah, but I said whites and blacks are being religiously and racially targeted. The police are doing nothing about it. And the reason being, you see what's now become a phrase in British politics, two-tier policing? I watched it my whole life. If you're outside a nightclub and the whites and blacks are having rows with the Pakistani Muslims, the police turn up and smash the whites and blacks.
Why is that?
Because they're scared of them. They're scared of the power they have.
Or is it also the wokeness,
it's the
mind virus that came the last 20, 30 years?
Well, I'd say after Stephen Lawrence, there was institutional racism, it went 360. It's gone so far the other way.
And that was the fear of being called racist, the fear of the perception of racism, and that flips it the other way.
Your whole career's gone. Your job's gone. And what would happen if the Muslims, say something went wrong with a couple of Muslims, there'd be 200 at the police station. You saw what happened in the Manchester attack. I think the verdict's come, Manchester airport.
Yeah.
So when the police officer kicked him in the head.
Yeah.
There were demonstrations everywhere. We find out that they were beating innocent people up in the airport, breaking police officers' noses. But the Muslim community will take to the streets. In Luton, the Muslim community will riot. They will threaten violence. After the Bradford riots in 2001, where Muslims rioted in Bradford, Oldham, across the north, costing tens of millions of pounds to the economy. After that, they got concessions in everything. And what their leaders always say is, we won't be able to control the youth. And their leaders act as negotiators. So they sit down and negotiate with the government and police forces, and then the police pander and basically let them get away with everything. And that's what we'd seen growing up in Luton. And the other thing is that politically, so Luton at the time, I remember when I looked into this, we had 19 mosques, and the leader of the council of the mosques sits down with the Labour council, and they're doing a deal. Right. This is how it works. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want 40,000 votes? This is what you need to do. Yeah. And they'll get land for a mosque for 50p. They'll get this concession, that concession, and then they get voted in by Labour. And then we, as working class, we become irrelevant. White working class, we're gone. Yeah. Because we don't vote in a military fashion.
Right.
We don't organise ourselves. We don't have the community spirit, the community togetherness of 19 mosques telling them who to vote for and organising. So for Labour to stay in power in Luton, we don't matter. They do. So the funding, everything goes that way. Yeah. And when we started, so when I started the English Defence League, so this was 2004. Yeah. This is 5 years before the EDL. I organised a protest, and I make these leaflets, and I named the Pakistani gang that's doing the drug dealing, the heroin dealing, the pimping of young girls, the grooming. They were called the Gambino Gang. Not very original for Pakistanis, right? Copying the name, but that's what they were called. And 3 years later, the national newspapers run a story on the same gang, saying that gang are funding terrorism, and there's a link between the street level gangs and the terrorism, and they fund each other. But when I made this, so when I come out against them, I was obviously target number one. I was young, we were the football group, and then we had all the Pakistani gangs wanting blood, because I'd named them, brought 200 lads out. For that first day, the terrorists weren't there. They bottled it. They always do bottle it, if I'm honest. When it's been on, they bottle it. Yeah. When the English Defence League started, they bottled it. They weren't there. Yeah,
That's guerrilla tactics, right?
That's what they do. Then they come out in numbers. Then they come out in numbers and they get you.
So in 2004, you had printed all this up, including the gang, including the heroin and the grooming and all that. You had called it all out.
I called it all out, and if you watch on my Oxford Union presentation, I read the leaflet out and I show the front page of the paper. When I'd done my presentation, I went to the library and went back through the papers to get the leaflet to just show everyone, this is what I was saying then, yeah? And it was ignored, and I'd seen it, and this is where we are now. And this was, so by the time 2009 comes, by that time, I've had clashes with with all the drug gangs, because they've all wanted to get me. They've smashed my mum's house up. I can't go out in Luton unless I go out with 30 lads. But that just become normal, yeah? And then by the end of a few years of battling, when they see you, so all right, you know, you grow up from being 20 and you're all fighting each other. As you get older, so then by this time I'm 24, 25, and there's a soldiers' homecoming parade in Luton. And as the soldiers are marching through, I went down on a Tuesday morning and I stood there. And as I got down to the town centre, it was a homecoming parade for the Royal Anglian Regiment. And as I come down, I saw police everywhere. And I thought, what's going on? Like, yeah, we got a soldiers' homecoming, but there was quite a high presence of police. And then I saw about 30 women wearing niqabs, yeah? And then I started spotting the jihadists, Saif al-Islam. Remember, so lots of these are now dead. 3 of them died fighting for ISIS. Saif al-Islam's done jail for ISIS. Roger Ibrahim, I used to hang around with him as a kid. He was a convert in jail. He's now done jail for ISIS. So this group, they've all been dismantled now, but at the time they weren't. And I saw the police take them, and then I saw my town hall, the doors opened, and they walked them all through. And I was watching them walking through, thinking, what's going on? And then as the soldiers and their families have come marching down here at the back of the town hall, they took the Muslims right to the front, and then they spat at them. They spat at the soldier's mum's face. Now in this regiment, Scott Muntridge was from our estate, 26, he died. Michael Swain, 19, lost his legs. So you can imagine the feeling of a community. They're there to pay respects and then watch this. So when we saw this, people got angry, the police turned their batons on us. And I remember watching it that day and watching it all develop and being so angry because it's Luton and it went world news and all the they were shouting butchers of Basra, all the Muslims were. And then we found out, because there's probably about 60 or 80 of them. But then we found out, because they nicked my cousin, they nicked a couple of our lads that day. And then when they nicked them, we got the intel reports that the police detained 330 Muslims coming off the motorway. So they knew they were coming from everywhere to attack the troops. So they stopped the ones that were coming from outside of Luton, but the Luton ones they couldn't stop. So this happened, and then we found out that all the mosques were leafleted the week before, and that the police knew it was going to happen, the council knew it was happening. And this is the problem. The council knew and the police knew what they were going to do, but they're so scared of them, they couldn't tell them no. Now, if we said we want to protest outside a mosque or on an Islamic event, they wouldn't let us. Yeah? They wouldn't let you. So when we watched it, I thought, right, if they get away with this, if they're allowed to do this, what's next? Soldier's funeral? What's next? They're going to be going to graveyards? What are they going to do next? There has to be a reaction to this. The country has to know there's a reaction to this. The police need to know there's a reaction to this. So I set up a group called the United People of Luton, the UPL. And the first event was the community, my aunties, family, women. And we tried to get to the war memorial that they got to. And when we turned up on the day, hundreds of us, we had banners, we made it very clear, National Front, the Nazis go to hell, Saif al-Islam go to hell, Islamic extremists go to hell, we want our town back. In fact, on that first march, the second march, you can find it on YouTube, it was the first singing of, you hear now at demonstrations, we want our country back. Well, that's what we're all singing, we want our country back. It's going back to 2009, yeah? There was hundreds of us. But when we turned up, the police, I paid a cameraman, a wedding photographer, contacted a wedding, and I've done this because I know what happens, because I've seen it my whole life. But I wanted everyone else to know. I wanted the public to see the difference between how we're treated and how they're treated. So I paid this cameraman £450 and he's a wedding cameraman. He must think, what's he? And then when he turns up, there's like hundreds of us. And so you just need to video with us, follow us and video everything. So we walk down, the police come from everywhere. And then they stop us, take your shoes off, searching our socks, putting their hands in our pockets, cameras in our faces, what's your name, where do you live? So I just said, you didn't do this to them. On that Tuesday, when they went through our town hall, you didn't stop and search them, I watched you. There was no searching of them, there was no cameras in their faces, and then they kettled us. So when we tried to get to the town hall, they kettled and they didn't let people past. The police come past on a horse. They knocked a little black lad. They knocked his teeth out. Isaac, my mate. They knocked his teeth out, and they kettled us for 3 or 4 hours. Women were having to urinate in the street, and we were ready to blow. I was like, no, you let them get to the war memorial. Now we've turned up as a community to get to the war memorial. We're getting attacked by you, kettled by you, and treated like second-class citizens again by a police force which didn't do anything to the terrorists. So this was more, I said at that moment, which this was the first bank holiday in May, and 3 weeks later, so we have this demonstration, and then 2-3 days later, boom, 14 dawn raids. One of them was my mum's. So the police come through all the doors, and this is them trying to crush any resistance straight away. So what they did is they took anyone who was influential, young lads, because we were young at the time, but so if you had a bit of a following or you were from an estate, because lots of different estates come together, they dawn raided them, and this is to scare everyone else. And when they went to my mum's, I weren't there, and they gave everyone they arrested bail conditions not to enter Luton Town Centre for 3 months, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So they banned us. Now, in the build-up to this first ever demonstration, I set up a petition. And it was a petition with 3,500 signatures. Before any protests, we set up a petition and we asked the council to use ASBO orders, antisocial behaviour orders. So in our estate, if 2 kids are continually causing trouble together, they get given an ASBO where they're not allowed to hang around together. So what we asked the council was, give this group an ASBO. Get them out of our town centre. So after what they've done to our soldiers, if my mum wants to walk past Don Miller's, these lot ain't there. And if vulnerable young men are walking past Don Miller's, these lot ain't converting them, yeah? Instead of doing that to them, the police come and done it to us. So next comes a second demonstration, and this is what gave birth to the English Defence League. Because the next demonstration, I rang the police anonymously, because the feeling was that strong. And you can watch the video, United People of Luton protest. I'd say 500 lads turned up. And I bought balaclavas for everyone. So when we met at the pub, I gave everyone balaclavas, and we all had no surrender. We had Luton Town t-shirts, and it said no surrender to Al Qaeda. Yeah, and I'd gone to all the different estates and met lads from other estates who we didn't even like. Yeah, I said, lads, like they're taking the piss. Unless we come together as a town, we need to stand up to this. Yeah, we need to stand up to the police, to the council, to all of them. They need to know that this can't carry on. So we all turned up that day, gave out the balaclavas. I rang the police beforehand, anonymously, and said, if you stop us, I'm just warning you, if you try and stop these lads, I'm giving you the feeling of the town. Luton's going to burn. I'm telling you, the whole town's going to burn. It's ready to blow. You could have lit a match and the town's about to explode. There was that much anger at what had happened, but then how we'd been treated as a community trying to have our say. Yeah, That's what it become about. It become not so much about what the Muslims had done. It become about the police response, the council response. And then we were sitting watching, Hazel Simmons was the leader of our council. And after the first protest and the second protest, she's saying, these outsiders come into Luton. I think these outsiders, we're all Luton. There's 500 men chanting, we are Luton Town. Now, the imagery didn't look good, okay? Men in balaclavas charged through the streets. The police tried to stop it and couldn't stop it. They got run everywhere. And then everyone got to the war memorial, which is all people wanted. And then we held a minute's silence for our armed forces. But then the image was of hundreds of men wearing balaclavas standing outside our town hall with their hands up. That image went worldwide, yeah? That was the start of the English Defence League. Okay. That's what really gave birth to it. And again, what I'd done after that was that group, Al Mujahideen, the terrorists, who weren't prescribed at the time, we just followed them. So I looked at what they were doing, Islamic Roadshow. They were in Birmingham, they were in Wood Green. We got about 40, 50 of us in the back of a van, and then we jumped out on them in Wood Green to put up their pace tables. And it was sort of like, I guess, instead of going looking for other football teams on a Saturday, we're thinking, get the terrorists. That's how it started.
Okay. And it was a successful start. Did you get what you wanted?
We got what we wanted. They started, well...
And recognition and media coverage.
Media coverage, and it went from me realising that the problems I'd seen in Luton, they're in every town and city.
Okay.
As we took it national, I had families coming to me about their daughters. I was hearing different stories thinking, Jesus, it's the same. Everywhere across the country, we're being betrayed. Our daughters are under attack. So this is going on, and then we're having... And it actually worked, because at the start, Luton's hotting up. There was fire bombings. There was trouble in Luton at the start. All the terrorists got done. So the ones that protest against the soldiers, that some of them lived up in our estate. Like they didn't live up there for long. It went mad.
Okay.
It went mad. And then they were jumping out of cars on people. And then in the end, the imams called us for meetings. And we had meetings with the imams. And they said, we've all got to live in Luton. I said, we know. But you can't, what's happening to our daughters? This was the sticking point. I said, what are you doing to the girls?
What did they say?
They said, Kadir Bask was the main imam. They're all radicals, proper radicals. But they were worried at the same time. When we went, I said, lads, you're not jumping out of cars on us. We're not going away. Yeah, that people are now ready. And I remember the Pakistani boys ringing me up at the time when it was all kicking off at the start. And they said, oh, Yaxley, this lads I grew up with. And they said, mate, you're not messing with the street levels here. You're messing with jihadists, man. These boys have been in training camps. I said, well, there's 500 of us. There's 500 of us, lads. But at the start, we were that annoyed and frustrated. But whereas in 2004, I used my first name, by the next time when the demonstrations come, it's why I used a fake name, Tommy Robinson. Okay. I wore a mask. Okay. No one knew who I was at first. They knew we were all there as football lads, but no one knew who the leader was.
Is there power in that? There is at the time.
There was at the time because I could do it anonymously and not face the backlash.
Okay.
It took about a year before everyone knew who I was. And then I faced the threats, the terrorism, the violence. But for that first year, I could hide who I was.
And you ended up leaving the EDL. Why?
Because the EDL, at that moment in time, you have to understand, you see the grooming scandal, the rape scandal, no one knew about it. What happened in 6 months was I went from working on a building site and running a couple of little companies to being the leader of the biggest street protest movement Europe has seen. And that street protest movement was spiralling out of control at first. No one was ready for it. The police didn't know how to deal with it. We didn't know how to deal with it. We went from Luton, there was 50 of us in Luton. The Islamic Roadshow, this group, set up a pace table in Birmingham and they had a banner that said Jesus was a Muslim. And they held a banner up and they converted an 11-year-old boy called Sean. I showed this video on my Oxford University so people understand what we've done. And they converted this boy called Sean to Islam and they're all chanting Allah Akbar. Now, you can't leave Islam, not as far as these jihadists' mindset is. They want to kill you. So I thought, you're now converting our kids. You've gone from attacking our soldiers to shopping centres in Birmingham to converting English kids. I said, no. So we went to Birmingham to try and highlight that. Now, when we went to Birmingham as a group of 50, and we got there, well, Salma Yaqub was a Muslim politician, and they'd all told everyone the National Front, the BNP were coming, and Muslims come from everywhere, and we got attacked, we got battered, people were hospitalised, the police couldn't get us out of there. They locked us in a pub for about 3 hours, then the police brought buses in to put us in, and as they put us in the buses, all the windows come in, and every road we went down was littered with bricks. There were riots. The Muslim community come out to end us on that first event, yeah? But we had, by this point, we had jumpers and hoodies made saying English Defence League. But there was only 50 Luton lads. That's all it was, yeah? And a few Birmingham lads had turned up. Now, from that first demonstration, the images in the national newspaper were English men on the floor and groups of Pakistanis jumping on them. So we'd watch what happened in Birmingham, and after this, there was a church in Longsight in Manchester.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.